Rise of the Floodborn's metagame in Lorcana seems to be shaping up to be a triangle at the top end of the meta, where you have Ruby Amethyst aggro bounce kind of pushing for top spot, but it does get beaten by Amber Steel Song. However, the Popsicle control deck, which is Ruby Sapphire, does beat Amber Steel Song, but it loses to this deck. So it's very interesting to see it shape up that way. But I do think Ruby Amethyst is the better deck between this one and the Ruby Sapphire, mainly because of the reasons I've already explained in my Ruby Sapphire Popsicle control version, where that deck does really require you to set things up and combo, and so it requires you to have combo pieces, whereas the Ruby Amethyst aggro is just a deck that functions in and of itself, kind of like what Ruby Amethyst Control did in the first chapter, which is what I did play in real life. What do I mean by that? Well, with the Ruby Sapphire list, you need things like the Huron with an item, you need the Dinner Bell if you're running my version with a damaged character. No card functions individually, whereas the Ruby Amethyst version here, you can play a Merlin Goat, get the advantage right away of the one lore. Play a Merlin Rabbit, get the advantage right away. Use the Madam Mim, bounce a card back, whether it gets advantage or not. Like, you can just get a damaged character back to hand, get a resource back to hand for ink, get something that has an effect like a LeFou to re-ready stuff. Like, there's so many cards that just function in and of themselves without needing a combo piece. But if you do see a combo piece, like you see that Madam Mim Fox with the Merlin Goat or Merlin Rabbit, you are generating even more insane advantage, and that's why this deck has been functioning so well in this metagame. Not to mention that you can bounce back big threats like the Lady Tremaine and the Maleficent with your Madam Mim cards, and then just recast them for their removal effects as well. Not only that, you have access to two of the best songs in the game in Pot of Greed or Friends on the Other Side, and Be Prepared to help you maintain and reset board states. But overall, it's very powerful. The change from my previous list to this one, and my previous list was a little bit more experimental, but it worked very well, is I've opted to include 3 Aladdin and 2 Pocket Watch. This was a very powerful package in the first chapter, and everybody cut this, including myself, because Aladdin just seemed to be too slow. However, now that we've seen the metagame shape up, and with the mirror match focusing on Goat closing out games, once you get to 14 or 15 lore, cycling through your Goat by bouncing it essentially is how you close out the game, because your opponent can't deal with it with removal, because the Goat's constantly coming back to your hand, generating you lore, and it can be very difficult to deal with. So you need alternative methods, and one of those alternative methods is using Pocket Watch with a dropped Aladdin after 8 ink, and just claw back 2 lore. It can help you regain tempo, it can help you deal with threats, it can help you prevent you from losing the game. So this is the deck list. Again, the previous deck video will be linked in the description, and this full deck list in written form is linked in the description and pinned in the comments for the Dreamborn Inc. list and the stats breakdown. But let's go ahead and take a look at some matches. So in this first matchup here, we are going second, and we're just putting back our high costing cards or uninkables. And now we have a hand of Pinocchio with a bunch of inkables. So to start off, the opponent reveals that they're on the mirror match, I believe, and we mirror each other's plays by each playing a Minnie Mouse. Now, inking Aladdin in the beginning of the game, of course, is reasonable because we can't use it so early. But we're going to continue on here, just seeing how to essentially press our opponent, since we're not on the play, we're on the draw, and they technically do have tempo. I do get the Teeth and Ambitions out of the opponent's hand there, which is all right. I'm going to be able to get their mini off field, and just like that, I've now gained board presence, and I should be able to hopefully play this, Maleficent, and draw a card. I was worried I was going to play that Madam Mim for a second just to recycle the Minnie Mouse, but there's no need to do that. So the opponent hard casts a Friends on the Other Side, and we're going to be able to sing ours. So again, you can see how important board presence is with this deck, because in order to maintain tempo and control the board, even though this is not really a control deck, you do need to utilize that board presence to sing those songs, bounce your cards back. So you need board presence in order to bounce things back, and just kind of put pressure on your opponent. So you can see here that we are far ahead. We have even card advantage. We are even on lore. Actually, we have a more advanced card advantage. We're always going to be behind on ink until very late game if we can maintain advantage. And we're putting a lot of pressure on the opponent with these Pinocchios. And you've already seen why Pinocchio may not be good. Like, you got Teeth and Ambition away. If you're going up against Steel, it's a completely dead card. So that's why you might want to opt to remove it. But being on 5 ink, I knew the opponent was 1 turn away from a Be Prepared. So I've opted to overextend with the Pinocchios and just get 6 lore out of them. The opponent Dragon Fires, which is an interesting choice to include in their deck. But it does stop me from getting an additional 3 lore. And I am expecting the Be Prepared to come down. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the Be Prepared here, as you know, I've flooded the board and removed your threats. So let's have you Be Prepared, which will spend your turn, and then I can spend my turn re-establishing my board with the Merlin Rabbits. I do have 2 Be Prepareds of my own. However, the opponent has an even better play. They're opting to play Queen, which again, I don't include in my list. And this is an interesting kind of setup here, but honestly, like, Scar probably would just be better overall here. I don't know how I feel about things. I mean, the Queen and Madam M Fox are obviously inkable, Scar is not, so there is that. But they wipe my whole board without needing to be prepared, cycling through the Queen of Hearts and the Madam M Fox. That was a really nice play. I do kind of make, I don't know if it's really inefficient, but I'm like, what else am I really going to do? I really want to maintain board presence, and I don't want my opponent to have anything. They drop an Aladdin, and this to me says Desperation. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce back the Merlin Rabbit here, and then drop the Arthur and pass turn. And I was not expecting this Elsa drop, and I was like, oh shoot. And here you can see my opponent is also on the Aladdin tech. They're obviously running Elsa along with it, which is another good combination to use. But I would rather just surprise factor after having Pocket Watch, just slap down the Aladdin and then just take out whatever's exerted. But the Elsa is a nice touch, but you did see that the Aladdin was basically vulnerable while it was sitting on the field there. If I had a Lady Tremaine or something, I just would have taken it out instantly. So I like to get value off the Aladdin as soon as I play it and not have to wait for an Elsa. Plus, Elsa is a big uninkable card in your hand. It's not really played anymore in the most competitive version of Ruby Amethyst. I'm sure you can still play a control version with Elsa, Big Elsa, but right now it's not good in this version, in my opinion. So here the opponent opts to finally drop their Be Prepared, clearing off my Rabbit and my Goat, so that's extra card advantage off both of them, and you can just see how insane this deck is. Like, Popsicle Control is nice because you can draw a bunch of cards, but I mean, I'm drawing cards right now, and I have 11 lore, and I'm putting a ton of pressure on board, and I still have all of the removal that Ruby Sapphire does with the Ruby package. I just don't have the ink ramp, which does make a bit of a difference, but if I have board control and card advantage, that matters more than ramping up on ink. And so that's kind of why this deck is seen as the better of the two, and I guess the stats do kind of show that. Anyways, oh, in this version I was running Baby Elsa still. I've since cut those out. I believe, actually, you know what, I believe I was not running Pocket Watch when I recorded these clips, and then I think afterwards I edited the deck, or I made the deck from scratch because I didn't want to edit my old one, and I opted to cut the Elsas and put in the Pocket Watches. So here you can see where it would have been relevant, because I could have maybe played a Pocket Watch and then threatened the Aladdin if the opponent leaves something exerted right next turn. And Aladdin actually closes out games. I think I mentioned in one of my other videos that in real life, my only locals I went to after Rise of the Floodborn, because I've been in the hospital for this past weekend, I played a guy with a fully kitted out Ruby Sapphire deck, and I was still using my Ruby Amethyst control from set 1, and I still won. And one of the main reasons I won is because Aladdin put in that work with the Pocket Watch and the Shield of Virtue, which you don't run Shield of Virtue in this one, but you can just see how Aladdin can also close out games, because when you're on 16, 17, 18 lore, getting that extra 2 lore off the Aladdin can help you win the game, basically. Here the opponent ends up resigning after not being able to deal with the Pinocchio and Arthur in the end game. Now we move on to match 2, which is another mirror match. The opponent inks an Aladdin, so a lot of people back on that Aladdin tech. I thought I was going to be the only one, but apparently not. This game, I'm pretty sure, moves fast because I cut out all the wait times here. It can be a tough decision to decide what to do. Again, not feeling too comfortable in the mirror match to drop a Pinocchio because it is so susceptible to a Teeth and Ambitions. The opponent drops a Maleficent on turn 3 though, which means my Pinocchio will quest for 3. And despite my opponent having 5 cards in hand and 2 cards on board, we're actually in control now because of the Pinocchio being able to quest and being able to be recycled with the Madam and Fox, which gets us pure advantage off of taking out the Minnie Mouse. So the board state is even. The opponent is on the play, so they're ahead on ink and on tempo. And yes, they do get a nice bounce there, but trading off these mana mims equalizes the board state, and now I have control. Despite being behind on ink, which does suck, I'm now able to put first pressure on board, which matters a lot. So I make a very odd play. Oh, actually, no, it's not. Sorry, I thought I was going to play the Go, but yeah, playing the Merlin there is the correct play. No need to play the Maleficent. It's better off as ink. And this is, again, why I play only 3 Merlin Rabbit, because I do not want to brick on them. One thing I will say is, instead of Pinocchios, I might opt to play the small Aladdin to combo with the big Aladdin, or the small Lady Tremaine to, again, shift off of onto the big Lady Tremaine, or have the big Lady Tremaine shift onto the smaller one, I should say. And those are nice because, again, they just take away lore from the opponent, and when you're on the draw and not on the play, they can make a really big difference, because like I said, sometimes the opponent being able to close out a game with GOAT on Amethyst is very, very significant. So here, this opponent is on a Spellbook variant. I am not a big fan of that because I think Spellbook is way too slow. You can see here they just lost all tempo by trying to play down that Spellbook, and the fact that it costs ink every turn to cast, again, just disrupts your tempo way too much. And you can see the board state difference here, right? The pressure is on, and at this point, once the opponent sees my Lady Tremaine, they are going to scoop, because they're in desperation mode when they drop Aladdin and just leave it naked like that. And just like that, the opponent ends up resigning without choosing their Aladdin, and that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you again for watching, guys. Quantum is out.